So the first question is, how do we know when a rectal examination is abnormal? Your GP will do this test regularly, and if he finds a hard lump or marked asymmetry between the two sides of the prostate, he'll generally say it's abnormal and refer you on to a specialist. How do we know whether the PSA is abnormal? The level of PSA predicts the likelihood of cancer. The level of PSA is affected by one's age, and the older we become, the higher the PSA naturally becomes. So, if the PSA is above 4 over the age of 60, that's abnormal. If it's above 3 over the age of 50, or above 2.5 over the age of 40, these have generally been regarded as abnormal. More recently, it's been shown that this isn't quite enough information. We really need to look at how the PSA changes over time, what we call Psa Velocity, to predict more accurately when we've got cancer. So if we're monitoring the PSA once a year, if the PSA goes up by more than 0.4 in the calendar year for 2 consecutive years when we're young, and what I mean by young is under the age of 55, then that's abnormal. If over the age of 55, it goes up by more than 0.75 for 2 consecutive years, that's abnormal. So it's not just the level of PSA, it's not just taking age into consideration, but it's also how it changes over time that gives us an idea as to when we need to be further investigated. One of the very interesting websites available, which you can go to our reference section, is the Risk Prostate Calculator, which can predict the likelihood that you have a cancer of the prostate depending on your PSA level. It also tells us whether you've got a low-grade cancer, which often are relatively harmless, or a high-grade cancer, which are clearly much more dangerous. And this brings me to another area of how can we tell whether we've got a good or a bad prostate cancer, because some of the cancers are so slow growing that they may never be a risk. At this stage, the only way of separating those two is by a biopsy and looking under the microscope. In the future, we hope to have better genetic testing to be able to separate these two groups so that we can only treat those people who need to be treated and monitor those people who don't.